Hi, I'm Georgia, founder of French Bedroom. Welcome back to the second episode of In Bed With, where I speak to some really amazing and inspirational females. I speak to them about their why, what gets them up in the morning, and what motivates them to be as brilliant as they are. Let's see who I'm joined by today. A brand born from a moment of courage. After juggling a high-pressure fashion career and suddenly becoming a single mother, Fiona Bell took a leap of faith and founded Their Nibs, with a mission to create joyful sleepwear and a business that allowed her to balance work and motherhood on her own terms. Fast forward 21 years, and Their Nibs have evolved into a woman-focused brand that celebrates the natural world, whimsical prints, and feeling good, with family still at its core. So join me today as I speak with Fiona about all things PJs, behind-the-scenes moments, and the undeniable skill of balancing a successful business alongside motherhood. So, Fee, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Today. Can you tell me about Their Nibs and where it started, how it began?
Yes, I can. So basically, I was a high street buyer for many years, worked for various different sort of big retailers. I became a single mum quite unexpectedly.
Okay.
So adversity drove me to start the business, which was, happens in lots of people's lives. It can drive you to a different route.
Yeah.
And it was the best thing that ever happened in hindsight, but at the time, harder to kind of stomach and quite tricky. So I was always a bit of an entrepreneur as a kid. I remember one summer, we lived in a cul-de-sac. I went round my neighbours' gardens picking flowers from their front garden, knocking on the door and trying to sell them the bunch of flowers.
Amazing. Back to
so
them.
So I wouldn't quite do that in business now, but I was only 6 or 7 at the time. So so I always had that entrepreneurial streak. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, so it seemed the right direction for me and my very little son at the time.
So it's in your DNA, but what a time to be a single mum and decide to start a business, because that's two very difficult things to do at the same time simultaneously.
It was
It
was very difficult.
And it is adversity, isn't it, that drives us to these things.
Absolutely.
Do you remember a moment, was there kind of an in the shower moment thinking, okay, I've got to do this? Or was it you didn't have a choice?
It was, and it sounds a bit corny this, but hand on heart, it's absolutely true. It was staring into my dad's fire one Christmas after it happened, probably 3 or 4 months after I became a single mum, and staring into the fire thinking, I've just got to reinvent myself. And it felt a bit like a phoenix, which does sound a bit odd and airy-fairy, but hand on heart, that's actually what happened. Yeah. And we actually did a phoenix print a couple of years ago, just to sort of celebrate that moment. Yeah.
Because I remember when I was a new mum, 3 months into motherhood, and I'm sure everyone watching and listening would probably feel the same. That's the last thing you're thinking is when you're a new mum, I'm going to start a new business. You're juggling all kinds of things.
Yeah.
The last thing you're thinking of is business.
Absolutely. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, it was. So Finn would have been around 18 months old. So it wasn't quite a small baby, but in a way that was harder because it was more managing. But I think you just get through things and you can see a vision at the end and know where you want to end up, and it's the journey to get there.
I would go so far as to say I think that's a woman thing, when you just
I
put
agree.
chips are down and you're like, right, this
is what I need
why.
to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Wow. So then you knew you wanted to start a business, and what was your pyjama moment? What was your this is what I'm going to do?
It actually started as a kids wear brand with a shop in Notting Hill, but it was pyjamas. It was always pyjamas as well, and it was always a print brand. So the print has remained in the DNA of the brand 22 years later. But we were more kids focused back then, and it was just a retail shop, not so much wholesale.
Yeah.
The wholesale kind of evolved over the years. But I'm really proud that the DNA has remained within the brand.
Yeah.
We were always quite eclectic, a little bit quirky, and again, that's remained as one of our key words in the brand. So it's evolved into a nightwear brand over the last 15 years or so.
Yeah. Did you have any connections in the PJs world Was that something, had you been a PJ buyer or nightwear buyer?
I was actually a nightwear buyer for Laura Ashley. I was there for many years as a buyer, and that was one of my areas that I bought.
Right. So you knew what you were doing.
I knew the kind of, it's a traditional block, blah, blah, blah. So I did know a little bit about the nightwear world, but it just seemed we didn't want to go into outerwear, and when I say outerwear, I mean dresses, not physical outerwear coats.
Daywear.
Outerwear, daywear, because the competition's too stiff.
Yeah.
So pyjamas was a nice kind of ease into women's wear without having to go the full hog into the whole outerwear kind of world, which is a difficult world to enter.
I agree. It's very competitive, isn't it? And it's really saturated. And actually doing one thing and doing it well.
Yeah.
Like we do bedrooms.
Yeah,
People
and really
often say
well.
to us, why don't you do dining rooms or drawing rooms? But actually, bedrooms, it just
There's
makes sense.
a massive 80-20 rule in business.
Yeah.
And actually, it's so true, is that you've just got to home in on what you know.
Yeah.
We diversify a little bit like you would do with soft furnishings, etc. But it's homing in on what you know, doing it well, and sticking to that ethos.
Yeah, agreed. And actually, when you've got a really good print, that can transcribe to other products, but in a collaborative way. So you could collaborate with other brands and companies. And
absolutely.
businesses. So where do you source your inspiration?
So all sorts of places, really. So Sia, who's our design director, works, and she actually physically paints the prints, and she's really talented. In lockdown, for instance, she visited a lot of garden centres, like lots of us.
Because that's all you could do.
Yeah, that's all you could do. So she came up with a lovely print called the Field Flowers print, which is still in our collection. I spend a lot of time in Portobello Road because I live near there.
Yeah.
That's a very inspirational place to visit. Markets, all sorts of places, like, seeing an old vase in an antique shop can trigger lots of inspiration, for instance.
Yeah.
So, it's just keeping your eyes open the whole time.
Agreed. Yeah. I always say that I'm always on.
Yeah.
And whether it is, like you said, going to an antique shop. I went to Rye recently in East Sussex, and there's loads of antique shops. You can do an antique shop tour. I think there's about 18 antique shops you can go through in the town. It's only a small town. And the inspiration I got from Rye was amazing.
I mean, it's fabulous. And how lucky are we doing a job like this?
I know, it's not really a job, is it? To be honest,
not
it's a
really.
hobby. But I can't go to an art gallery or a museum without being inspired by some element of something I see.
Yeah.
Whether it's old books, or even wallpaper archives, even fashion. I mean, I find fashion really inspiring, but then you need to check to make sure that you've got a macro trend, not a micro trend. And, for example, I might take a lace collar from a dress and think, well, will that work? And I think, well, actually, it will do, because it's a macro trend, because lace has been in style and in vogue since the Victorian era. And same with ruffles as well. They go back, well, most recently probably to the 80s, but prior to that as well. But I think it is this all-seeing, one eye's thinking and one eye's seeing, or one eye's seeing and one eye's feeling, and thinking, will that work and will that transcribe to a print or a design?
Yeah, you've got to see beyond. Sometimes I look at things and Sia will say to me, no, that's too quirky.
Right.
You've got to rein it in a little bit.
There's a commercial, and then that's the balance,
yes, you do, and she is actually really good at that. So you do have to, you're right. You've got to imagine the end product and what would that look like. Because I go and buy some quite crazy things in terms of new silhouettes for 90s in particular.
I'd love to see some of those crazy
things. I do keep them all. And Sia just has to kind of slightly commercialise them.
Yeah. Just bring it down a step. And that's the thing, isn't it? Thinking about your customer. It is, one thing is thinking about the trends, and one thing is thinking about what you like, and then the most important thing is thinking about your customer.
Yes,
and actually
absolutely.
how they're going to use it, and will it last them years and years? Will they be proud to own it? And will it go with the things that they already have in their wardrobe, or for us in their home?
And actually that's something as a business that we're looking at more and more. So Frankie in marketing is looking at this with the team in terms of the end use of a product, because I think sometimes it's quite easy to manoeuvre your way too far away from, well, what is the end use of that? And we have made some things that are quite outrageous, and actually, well, what is the end use? So you do have to have a little bit of creativity and push the boundaries, and have something that is almost a press piece. But then the majority of the range has got to be has a clear end use.
We have beds that we design not because they're going to sell in droves, but because they are fundamentally beautiful and they are emblematic of what we stand for as a company and the femininity and the romance and the prettiness. But we know that they're not going to be the commercial everyday bed. They're going to be a very special bed. Yeah,
and featured perhaps in press or
exactly.
Which you need. Yeah. Because if you're at the head of the game all the time, coming up with these beautiful beds, and we've got to do the same with pyjamas. Coming up with the most beautiful bonkers pyjamas that people then buy a cotton traditional one. So yes.
And that's the thing, it's a blend of authenticity and commerciality, because you want to be really authentic and say, well, actually, this is emblematic of our brand and this stands for our visual direction. However, is it realistic for you to expect all of your customers to want a floral upholstered fabric headboard that might need cleaning more often than, say, a wooden framed headboard?
Yeah, sure.
But at the same time, it's really special to own. And yes, you're designing it to generate some press and be emblematic, and no, you're not designing it to be commercial, but it's true to who you are. Yeah. And you're in business to do what's true to you, to who you are, but you're also in business to make money.
Yeah, totally. Well. You've got to keep an eye on both.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's the balance, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So I'm really intrigued to know, how are pyjamas made? Yeah.
So we start with our concepts at the start of the season. So we have mood boards, and then Sia will go away and hand draw a print, lovely. Which is hand drawn.
So she does hand draw a lot of her prints.
She hand draws all of them.
Gorgeous.
And then she'll paint them, and she'll come up with an artwork, which is something like this. Yeah. So the artwork for this one then gets sent to Jaipur, where we make the pyjamas.
Lovely, yeah.
And they do what's called a strike off.
Yeah.
So they literally strike it off on a table with all of the different colours. We then approve that strike off and it goes into bulk production. So the fabric bases vary from cottons to voils to seersuckers this season. And the finished result is this lovely nightie in this gorgeous fruit and flower print.
Very, very loose cotton. It's beautiful. Must be so nice.
Oh, it's gorgeous to wear because it's really soft. Yeah. So it's a fairly seamless process in terms of our factory own their own printing mill, which gives us
that's
more.
Really special.
Yeah, it's amazing. So it gives us a lot more flexibility in trying smaller quantities and trying different fabrications on prints where the screen's open. We do use a lot more silhouettes than we ever used to do. So on nighties,
and by that you mean shapes?
The shapes, yeah. So we look for different silhouettes in, again, all sorts of places like Portobello Road. I buy old nighties. And,
do you find yourself buying antique nighties? Because I can see
a lot of antique
this lace
nighties
trim here and then the ruffled. It looks
and I'm sure you do the same in terms of looking for trims.
Absolutely.
So we get lots of inspiration from vintage shapes and and then the product's produced, we fit it. It's made and it's shipped.
Yeah. Okay. As simple as that.
As simple as that. Yeah. There's a lot in between where
Do you know what this reminds me of? Do you remember that show Sex Education with Gillian Anderson?
Oh yes.
This is something she would have worn.
Yeah.
It's got a kind of 1970s nostalgic vibe.
Yes.
But really colourful and punchy. It's absolutely beautiful. I love the strawberries.
Yeah.
And they're not your average kind of cherry, ditzy, juicy strawberry. They've got a real artistic quality to them.
Yeah. I mean, really Sia's really amazing at the finer detail of the prints.
Yeah.
She really
is.
And
the ladybirds.
Yeah, a nice quirky little bit with the ladybirds.
That's really, really pretty. I love that. I could potter in this all weekend making endless cups of tea.
Yeah, no, it's very easy to wear.
Yeah, it's like an elegant artist smock, but
it is.
But then some.
Yeah. It is. It's beautiful.
Well done. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, and actually, you know, the inspiration in terms of looking for new blocks can come from other areas. Like at the moment, I don't know whether you've seen the BBC series Dope Girls, about just after the First World War, and how women became much more independent because a lot of the men were away at war, and then there was that awful flu epidemic. So it's a really sort of inspirational series about women at that time, but just in terms of the imagery, it's conjured up loads in my head for amazing new sort of like more glamorous 1920s type shapes.
Yeah. Picturing the moment that it happened, or that inspiration for you, is so important to have such a vivid picture in your mind, isn't it? And then it becomes a lot easier to create, because in a way you've almost got a kind of an internal visual mood board going on up here.
All the time. Yeah.
So Phoebe, we talked about why we're in business, and essentially it is for a P&L, and we have to be making money to make it worthwhile. But at Their Nibs, you do something really special with your sales or profits, and you work with a charity called Coram. Can you tell me about that?
So they are a really interesting charity, because they were one of the first sort of charities to form in the 1750s by a man called Thomas Coram, and he founded the Foundling Hospital, and it was literally for children who were destitute. The mothers used to take them to the Foundling Hospital and leave them there knowing they couldn't be looked after, but they left with a token. So if it was a button, for instance, that was the most common thing. They'd break the button in half, give one half to the kid and leave, and the mother would keep the other half. So it was one of the first kind of charities back in the day. And they are still a charity today. They rely on people, much bigger companies than myself, but we feel we make a difference because the money we give actually funds a mindfulness course for new parents.
Nice.
It's
got me.
So it's actually, we can see where that money's going. And we adopted a wonderful little girl who's been in our family for 7 years now through Coram. So to give something back has been amazing.
Yeah, I can really imagine. And there's so many women who go through so many difficult moments, aren't there? And I feel like I've had it so easy with 2 children that I was able to have naturally, and they've been pretty much really amazing kids. And it's thinking about when I have a difficult day, it doesn't even compare to what women as early as 1970s, as recently as 1970s went through, and adoption laws and abortion laws, and it's a really difficult subject to talk about, isn't it, for many reasons. Well,
it's just one of those it's one of those things that there are 100,000 kids in the care system in this country, and they're all needing their forever homes.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of there's a lot of hoops to jump through, quite rightly so. But it's just bringing to the forefront that these kids are that they're just waiting to find the family that's going to give them the stability that they really need.
And they're just victims of really unfortunate circumstances. Nothing more than that. Just a horrendous thing to go through. And that's the UK.
Yes.
100,000. And my husband went to Ukraine recently to take some field ambulances out there, and he talked about an orphanage in Odessa in Ukraine that had hundreds of thousands of children who were
orphaned
as a result of war. It's, well, I probably have to stop there before I get too emotional, but it's something that really pulls my heart, and thank you for doing that. That's an amazing thing for everyone who buys from you.
I'm really, we're really lucky to be able to be in the position to do it, and we've got a really close relationship with Coram. We do events with them. We've just done a Mother's Day extra giveaway to give money to them. So it's a meaningful cause.
So raising awareness and generating donations as well. Thank you for doing that. So as we go into the next season, what's on your mood board at the moment?
So we are looking at lots of different stripe permutations, whether it's a larger stripe like this or more of a ticking stripe. And actually, funny enough, a lot of our colour palette comes from interiors. So we look at the paint colours quite a lot, rather than the kind of fashion colours, which we do obviously look at as well. But often with things that are not true outerwear, like dresses, etc., it's better to look at slightly quirkier colour palettes.
That's interesting. And do you think that's because pyjamas are worn inside?
Yes, I think that's exactly it.
Okay, that makes sense.
So lots of these, these came from a kind of a paint palette that we were looking at.
I can see that. I think I might even know where that's from.
So that works really well for us. Lots of whimsical type prints work really well for us. because it's something that is closer to our brand than maybe other print pyjama brands.
And perhaps there's a dreamlike quality to that whimsical print as well.
Exactly. And also with whimsical, you know, there's words like quirky and eclectic are very much in line with the brand and the way that we interpret prints.
That's lovely. Makes you really unique, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's again, going back to the commercial, it's nice to do something that appeals to the masses, but at the same time, it's nice to have something that is your design stamp.
Yes,
and the visuals that you are known for.
Yeah, exactly.
That's lovely.
So, yeah, and I've loved looking at your mood board because, you know, I just love interiors as well, and it's really interesting seeing the colour palettes on there, because I can imagine a lot of those colour palettes would translate so well into our stripes or prints. It
might be a bit of watch this space for Their Nibs French bedroom, mightn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got a bit of, on our mood board at the moment, we're still in spring because we've got lots of things coming through, and the nice thing about being interiors not fashion is we don't need to launch with the seasons. We don't have a kind of official spring, summer, autumn, winter. We can launch as products come through. So we've got all these light pastels coming through.
Yeah, these
at
are
the moment.
gorgeous.
Yeah, this is beautiful. This is embroidered in India, and it's actually made this design here, and also this lovely blue and brown embroidery, and this blue trellis. They're made in a factory in India, owned by an incredible family who actually cleanse the water that they use before they put it back into the water table. They feed 8,000 people a day. They have queues for miles around the factory, giving them lunch every day. And they also give sanitary products to all the females in their factory, but also all the females' relations who are females, so sisters, cousins, mothers, aunts, etc.
And I think it's so important to have a close relationship with your manufacturer, because we know the people that make our pyjamas.
Yeah.
You know, the pattern master has been with the factory in Jaipur for the 12 years I've dealt with them. It's still the same guy. We know all the merchandisers who are in the back office. Michelle, who's a factory owner, funnily enough, has got a son in the business who's the same age as my son.
Lovely.
And he's got an adopted daughter.
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of like it was meant to
straight
be.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important because not only do you know who's making your products, but you trust who's making your products, but also they can almost become like a bit of a partner to you in saying, actually, Fee, we were thinking this scalloped edge you've got on your collar here might actually look really nice with a mother of pearl button instead of plastic button.
Absolutely.
They've got enhancements.
Yeah, they've got fabulous sort of skill sets and sourcing in the local market with trims, and new trims that come in because we're in London, we don't see.
Yeah, sure.
So it's a great partnership. Yeah.
Out of all the products in your collection currently, but also the archive and all the designs that you've created over the years, is there one particular design that you've got a real connection with?
Yes, so the hummingbird design, which has become one of our core lines, and I'd say is quite iconic to Their Nibs, is one of my favourite designs because it was one of the first pyjamas I suppose I matched with Maggie, my little girl, with. So it's got nice emotional connections, as well as it feeds my bottom line quite well as well. So there's lots of different reasons for that being one of my favourites. But so what we found is we have created a core bank of prints that have become what we call continuity.
Yeah, right.
And every retailer has something like that. And then you layer your seasonal prints and products on top. So, the hummingbird was one of the first sort of continuity products that we did develop, and it's still in the collection today.
It's evergreen, it's not going anywhere, it's your bread and butter.
Absolutely,
yeah. That's really special. It was our very first logo, actually. We had a hummingbird in our first logo, and so that has really something to me too. That's lovely. That's really
and it's a lovely bird, the hummingbird, just in nature. It's got lots of lovely connotations of colour, and it's a real spiritual bird as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Beautiful to watch. So I've got a quirky one for you, Fee. So I know you quite well, and I'm thinking about if I was designing something for you, what would I design? Is it something you designed for me?
So I know that you feel the cold. So we've got a lovely velvet dressing gown, which we introduced in the collection a couple of years ago with a hood. It's got, you can really kind of cosy yourself up. So, and in lovely kind of soft colours for the spring, or equally in autumn, winter, you could put it onto darker colours and make it a bit more sumptuous. So
I'm feeling that already.
Yeah, a lovely velvet dressing gown. Yeah.
Thank you. That's gorgeous. I know. So if I was designing for you, so I would design you somewhere to get some R&R. We talk about French bedroom about creating rooms of one's own. So designing rooms for women that is a space, a kind of sanctuary. And I would design you a chair. And I know you've got a lovely one of our rattan beds, and I design you a rattan chair to match that bed.
Gorgeous.
And I'd probably put some upholstery on the base, and I'd maybe have a little hummingbird design right at the bottom, just so that you knew it was there, but actually it was nice and plain, because I know that you love your big bold print, but I'd create something that was just plain and easy to enjoy with a little hummingbird at the back.
That sounds gorgeous, yeah. And it would be my chair.
Exactly. No one else is allowed near it, let alone sit on
Yeah.
it. So over the years, since 2003 when you founded Their Nibs, what's the most unexpected thing that you've learned about you, about yourself in business?
In business. So I suppose it's the tenacity to actually keep going. And, you know, there's been a lot of bumps in the road over the last 22 years. It's never plain sailing in business. And there's a really sort of corny thing that I say to my kids, you know, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And even my daughter from the age of 4, she repeats that because she knows it's so important. So you just got to dust yourself down and keep going. And it's one of those things that you don't really discover that until you hit those bumps in the road, and you really just have to get on with it.
It's true.
So it's the perseverance, and it's an old adage, but you know, you've just got to see to the end of the road, and you do get there in the end.
You do. Yeah, my team know this. I always say happiness lies on the other side of hard.
Yeah.
And my kids know it as well.
Yeah.
And it is, you don't get true happiness unless you've done something hard to deserve that happiness.
Yeah, no, that's a lovely expression.
And I suppose the flip side is, so talking about what you've learned and what's been difficult, was there a moment when you had a real high and it was a real pinch me moment of like, oh my God, I'm doing this?
So, yeah, I mean, I suppose there's been a few of those, but a really major one for me, because it's a retailer that I've respected in the whole time I've been in, you know, throughout my retail career, was actually being in the John Lewis stores. So seeing your product in John Lewis is a pinch me moment, because it's an iconic retailer. It's the last department store on the British High Street now, and it's a lovely alignment for our brand. So it was definitely that one.
I can well imagine. It is a proper establishment, isn't it?
Totally.
And I've seen your products in John Lewis, and they look fabulous. In fact, that was the first time I saw them in the flesh.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I saw them before I met you. I knew about your brand. That was how I discovered them. Was through John Lewis.
I mean, it's a great marketing avenue for us. I mean, how perfect. The amount of people that go through those stores and trust that brand. So therefore, they trust you as a brand.
Good relationship.
Because you're in their store.
Yeah. In all the years, either during business or before you started your business, was there a piece of advice that you were given, an amazing adage that you think, I'm going to live by that today?
Yes, and it's one that is still very much one that I live by today. And it was actually my dad that said it to me. It's a really simple expression, and it's this: turnover is vanity, profit is sanity. And it's such a true because your turnover is irrelevant if you don't keep your eye on the bottom line. And you know, lots of entrepreneurs have failed because of that, because you can get carried away with budgets being over, but you just have to keep your eye on that bottom line. And your sanity is your net profit at the end of the year.
And without that net profit, you've got nothing to invest in the next year.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so that is how much you can do the next year, how much profit you made the previous year. Yeah, it's a really important one. And now, with all this experience you've had in these years, would you still give that same advice to someone you were?
In a heartbeat. Because it's just, you know, you can be creative, and there's lots of creative industries, and that adage applies to every industry really, because if you have a company, you've got to pay your bills, and you've got to have, you know, a net profit at the end of the year to show, like you said, to move on to the following year. So yes, I absolutely would.
And I'd almost add to that and say you need a bit of a war chest as well for when times are particularly hard. Like, for example, we talked about bumps in the road, and you know, the COVID years were a bit of a bump, weren't they, for all the retailers? And having a bit of a war chest that you can rely on, say, well, actually, we didn't make the profit this year, but we have this war chest that we have amassed that we can draw down from. Whilst it's not ideal to do, it's important to have it.
Yes, I agree.
So I think it's I suppose a bit like personal savings, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's having that
money,
security.
that security.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. And actually, a bit of advice I was given when I started French Bedroom was to plug the gap. So to identify what your skills are, and then to work out where your weak spots are.
Yeah, that's a good
your blind
one.
spots, and then employ team members to do what you can't do.
So it sounds like we've had a really similar journey because we've done exactly that. So it was originally in the way the business is now, Sia and I 11 years ago. And as we've grown, you know, it was Sia doing the marketing and Frankie joined us almost 2 years ago. And now Frankie's got a little team behind her. It's just, you organically grow and need those people, otherwise you can't grow to the next step.
No, and just because you could do potentially anything doesn't mean to say that you should be doing everything. And when I started French Bedroom, I was doing customer service, Ben, my husband, was doing the accounts. But, you know, of course, yes, I could pack orders and I could send them out. But
it's a waste of your time in the end.
Absolutely.
You have to see where your skills therefore end up.
Best placed.
Yeah, no, totally.
What's your purpose? Yeah, and your purpose will often change and remorph as your business grows.
Yeah.
But what I do like about having started off with such humble beginnings is that it means when I go down to the packing department, I'm like, do you want to give me a hand? I can help you for 10 minutes. I've got 10 minutes, I'm passing. Or how was your weekend? And whilst I'm chatting, I'm packing, because I know I was doing the job once.
Yeah. I mean, Sarah and I used to pack from an office that we had in West London many years ago. We were both really bad at it. We often got things wrong, and people, and we've got, you know, a big warehouse in Edinburgh now. But, you know, I know that my skills are, well, number one, I'm a bad packer, and my skills don't lie in that area. I'm not great at attention to detail with things, and I know that.
Yeah.
I'm not great at admin, and I know that, but I am, you know, a forward thinker, and I do think from this way down.
Yeah.
Which I think is a skill as your business grows.
She agrees.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, it is a skill as your business grows. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know I'm not great at Excel, and I'm really not good at pivot tables and VLOOKUPs and index match. I know when it needs to be used, but I'm not particularly great at doing it. But there are people in the company who are so good at it.
Absolutely, and it's a really good. No, totally. It's a good time to recognise that as your company grows. It's like, it won't grow if I'm still doing this, because I need to be the blue sky thinker doing that side of it, and I leave the Excel spreadsheets to people who can do that.
Yeah, visionaries can't implement.
No, totally.
Yeah, and you need to be the blue sky visionary. Yeah, and I guess well done for knowing it, because there are businesses where, you know, they don't do so well because everyone's trying to do everything, but moving on and progressing is the important thing to do.
It is.
But also appreciating other people's skill sets.
Yeah, and also some people find it hard to give things up that they've always done themselves.
Exactly.
Which
I know. I can be bad at that. If you could work with one designer, and I always ask this question, I love this question, dead or alive, who would that designer be?
So I had to think really hard about this, because there's lots of designers that I admire, but there's an American designer called Eula Johnson, and her style is sort of boho, but she's got that, she's a New Yorker, so she brings that side into her
I can see it.
designing as well, and she's really well travelled, so you can see that in her designs, and her attention to detail is so beautiful. But it's essentially, you know, my style is quite, but I mean, boho is a word that people hear a lot this summer, because it's you know, the trend comes around every few years, but that's very much my style. But Eula Johnson's nailed it, because she does it so beautifully, and it's with that gorgeous kind of like New York chic as well.
We talked earlier about Gillian Anderson in Sex Education, and I researched lots of her dresses, and they were Eula Johnson's dresses.
Oh wow!
And I've actually got one of her dresses in pink. And when I bought this dress, I thought, well, this is from H&M.
It looks like Eula Johnson.
Exactly. I thought it was a kind of dupe. So it's funny you've said that today. Yeah, her stuff's amazing. And actually, I've noticed that her designs now have gone a bit more bold and slightly less feminine, and she's advertising in Vogue, which was a great sign for how successful she must be.
Totally. Yeah, but she's a really clever designer.
Yeah, she is. She's an amazing designer. And I think I talked in the latest episode about, in the last episode, about Vivienne Westwood, and I'm a huge fan of hers. And I was thinking about, if I could work with one business person, dead or alive, I would probably choose Anita Roddick or Dame Anita Roddick.
Oh, yes, of course.
Because of her really pioneering forethinking. I think that in the 1980s, when everybody went to the Body Shop and had a Body Shop lip balm and kiwi or strawberry, I remember the flavours, I could smell them. The olfactory sense is so strong, isn't it? I remember it just like it was yesterday. And I think that her sustainability in her, you could do refills, you could go and have your shampoo bottles refilled.
She was ahead of her time.
Paper packaging, yeah. And it was a shame that when L'Oreal bought Body Shop, it didn't transfer, but often that is the case when you get a business owner who is so close to her principles and values and morals. It's hard to then upscale those and transfer those onto such a wider, larger scale, and ultimately that didn't work out. But I think that were she alive today, she'd be making some amazing inroads, and ESG and B Corp. Gosh, she'd be right at the forefront of that.
She was amazing.
I have huge respect for that thought that she put in right at the front. And I think that it's really important to understand that businesses can be a force for change, and we really can start to influence, or we do influence governments to make changes in the right direction. And it's more important now than ever with what's going on in the world, isn't it?
I agree.
So when you started in 2003, you had Finn and he was 18 months old. And then in the last 10 years, Maggie has come into your life. In the last 6 years, Maggie's come into your life.
7, yeah.
7 years. How did you juggle motherhood and being a single mum and starting and running your business that became really successful to where it is now?
So it was a lot of juggling, and as you know yourself, you've got to have lots of different hats on. I did get a lot of help from my parents, albeit they were based in Yorkshire, so I spent a lot of time on the M1 in service stations, swapping over the child. So there was a lot of that going on. Going out to India, which I had to do quite a lot early in the business, was really tricky for me because I was leaving him, and I always felt immense guilt about that. And if I used to have all sorts of worries about if anything happened to me when I was away on a flight, or which is sort of silly and unfounded. But
as mothers, they would do that.
Yeah, you totally do. So I was sort of catastrophizing a little bit too much. But you juggle your way through it. You just got to be really incredibly organised. And I was really lucky to have an amazing group of friends around me locally. The community I live in Northwest London is a really tight one, and it continues to be through the adoption of our daughter. We've had some amazing people around us who have just included Maggie into the community when she suddenly kind of appeared one day. It's not like I didn't give birth to a baby. This fully grown 4-year-old appeared, and it was amazing how much she was just kind of welcomed into all aspects of the community.
As part of the family, which is what she is.
Exactly.
And families come in all shapes and
they
sizes.
Absolutely
and all
do.
twists and turns.
Yeah.
Thanks for showing me your mood board earlier. What's your new collection like, without giving away too much? I'd love to know what...
So we have diversified a little bit, and we've done a lovely collection around, we've called it Boho Summer.
Oh, lovely.
So it's still, we're still using the same fabrications we'd use on the pyjamas, but it is more slightly bent towards more resort wear.
Nice.
So jumpsuits in cotton boils, jumpsuits in linen blends, gorgeous dresses. So it's a smaller collection, but it's still very much in keeping with the ethos of where we are as a brand. So we're really excited about it, and it is a slight departure from nightwear, but it's still in the realms of everything else that's got the DNA of Their Nibs.
Got you. So it's not outerwear, but it's something you could wear from bed to beach.
Absolutely, yeah. We did an amazing location shoot last year in Portugal.
Oh, wow.
In a really beautiful villa, but actually the best images we got from that shoot were in the local town. And the Boho Summer collection that's just launched, I think the strongest images come from the backdrop of this beautiful small Portuguese town rather than the villa itself.
And so how are the locals when you turn up and you're there? There's a large crew. It's a model, stylist, photographer, assistant. There's 4 or 5 of you.
Yeah, there was quite a few.
And do you have lighting? Do you need lighting?
No, we didn't do lighting.
So it's just a camera.
Yeah, it's just a camera, and so there's a camera, There's a video photographer who's my son Finn. Hair and makeup who's my niece Tabby, so we're very much a family business. But yeah, the locals left us alone. They didn't
so you can
bat
sit in the
an
cafe
eyelid.
and do
absolutely.
We've done that in Paris.
Yeah, oh amazing.
Yeah. And again, they don't bat an eyelid, but we're not a big crew, we're a smaller crew. Yeah.
So yes, it's so far we've been very lucky, it's been fine.
The candid, the relaxed moments are always the best ones, aren't they? It's been so lovely to chat to you today. I've got one final question for you, if that's okay. And it's a question I ask all of our guests. If you had one dream for your business, what would it be? So I'm quite an old-fashioned retailer and I love department stores. I just love them. So, apart from the amazing opportunities we've had within John Lewis, it would be amazing to do an elevator collection for Liberties. Oh, yeah. That would be one of my dreams. And seeing the brand in department stores through the world, like Court de l'Anglaise in Spain and Printemps in Paris, Neiman Marcus in New York, those kind of beautiful, iconic stores. Because of the way I see department stores, I think it's a great showcase for any brand. So yes, that would be my dream. I totally agree with that dream. And it's part of our history and heritage and upbringing, probably in the 70s and 80s. Totally. When a trip to a department store was a real treat. A key thing, I remember going to Peter Jones, the John Lewis in Sloane Square, and having knickerbocker glories before I went back to school. Yeah, so, the same with me growing up in Leeds. There was a department store called Schofield's, and, it was like a treat to go there on a Saturday. Yeah, it's a shame it's dying, isn't it? It is. It's an awful shame. Brands like Their Nibs keeping John Lewis alive. Yeah, hopefully. Thank you so much. You've been the most amazing guest. It's been a pleasure. I've loved it. Yeah, thank you so much, Georgia. I really thank you. You've been great in bed. Oh, thank you. Thank you, lovely. Oh, that was lovely. That was really fun, wasn't it? I enjoyed it.